it works, you know?
Well, there's always innovation, and
Mhm.
innovation always. There's a reason we're not riding horses around New York Street. Like,
Yep.
well, it might actually be more efficient, but that's a different story of traffic and how they
Well,
drive.
and it really put the horse manufacturers out of business.
Mm. Do you want to know what they did with a lot of the horse parts?
What's that?
So, I remember in 10th grade, we read this book called The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. And I remember this so vividly. Our teacher, Professor Patrick Duffy, he handed out these hot dog slices to everyone. And he's just giving us hot dog slices. And we're like, oh, yeah, we got hot dogs in class. Like, this is awesome. Like, we're 10th graders. We're little kids. And he's reading this passage. And he starts talking about where the hot dogs are made and what goes into hot dogs.
Ooh.
And this was in the 30s. This is way back even before nowadays. So, and basically it was like every part of the horse that wasn't used. Yeah, it gets really nasty really quick.
I would imagine, yeah.
I remember reading this and like every single person was just like, I can't eat hot dogs. I kept eating mine. I'm one of those kids. I was like, yeah, I'll get more hot dog. I'm cool. Yeah. But the innovation is a really good thing.
Yeah.
But that's driven by competition. That's driven by an ability to serve and help people.
Yep.
Good ideas make money, but I've had a million ideas that have tons of value that could make a lot of money. It doesn't matter unless you put the action, the time, your energy, your sweat, your blood, your tears, which is essentially our financial system.
Yep.
Because we get rewarded in dollars or yen or some fiat currency. That's not actually money.
Yep. Simoleons. I don't know if you ever played The Sims.
But yeah, it doesn't matter what it is. You trade your energy for a reward.
Yep.
That reward is able to get you more education, more opportunities, more assets, more food, more health care, whatever you're going for, at the expense of your time. Right? That's essentially how an economy, like there's a lot to an economy. Have you ever heard of Ludwig von Mises by chance?
I have not.
Okay. Have you heard of Keynesian economics?
Yes.
Okay. So the basic function of Keynesian economics, and there's a lot here, is essentially aggregate demand, aggregate supply. Yep. The idea is we can essentially keep printing money to drive the economy to create more demand supply, making the economy, how do I say?
Inflated.
Continuously going.
Yep.
And we don't allow, and we intervene because we as Americans, like Alan Greenspan, we think we're God. We think we're smart enough to control the system. We think we know what everyone's doing. We think we know their behavior. We think we recognize that a logical person would choose hamburger over steak if the value of steak goes up 10 times versus hamburger.
Yep.
Right? Try to keep it simple. Ludwig von Mises, there's something called the Mises Institute, which is for the School of Austrian Economics, which there's actually a really cool rap video. If you go on YouTube, actually, I don't know if we can play it on here, but you go on YouTube and it literally talks about the differences between Keynesian economics and Austrian economics.
There's some post effects up in the upper right-hand corner with the video. Like do it later, you know.
Okay, yeah. You can Google it just, and it basically compares these different economic theories, right? There's no right or wrong answer because, right, they're theories. We don't know.
Yep.
Yet, with all this being said, we've seen fiat currency. Like, this is something down the conspiracy rabbit hole that I like to go. But if you look up the history of fiat currencies, the word fiat essentially derives from the word for trust. It's essentially trust.
Yep.
And every single fiat currency, there's been over 4,000 plus of them throughout history, has gone to zero. They're not around anymore.
Yep.
Yet we derive our life to obtain this currency because it's a representation of valuable, just like musical chairs. As long as there's chairs and we can walk around, it's okay. But if people start sitting down and people start taking out chairs, the value goes away. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's all about trust. You know, it's what is this piece of paper worth? What if, you know, all of a sudden Danimal's yogurt becomes a currency? Totally. All of a sudden trust in this goes up and we can start using it. And people see it differently. That's the crazy thing. People start seeing it differently. Like,
Totally.
oh, like I really need that yogurt bottle. No, it's just a yogurt bottle. Just like, you know, $1 is just a piece of cloth, essentially.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. The only the government can take a real asset and make it worthless.
Yep.
Like, I say that because paper is an asset. You can write on it. You can send letters. You can do a lot of things.
Yep.
Yet throughout history, like Weimar Germany, super recently Venezuela, it's happened in the Roman Empire, currency debasement. We're doing it in America. Like, anyone who thinks that inflation's 2% is an idiot. I used to read federal data on the internet, right? Part of my role is I would go through the Fed papers, the economic data, and I would look at their information and their data. And they use something called a basket of goods. That's one of the general ways to account for inflation. They say, hey, in 1960, it cost you 47 cents for a hamburger. How much does it cost nowadays? Let's look at the comparison of costs versus how much you get the value, and let's see the price change. And what they've done in a lot of these baskets is they've actually replaced the items that are in the basket. So they're like, oh, for a long time we used steak, right? It used to be steak in the basket. But we're actually going to use hamburger instead of steak because they're like the same thing. Even though steak is a way nicer cut, depending on what steak you get more things. But it's generally nicer than hamburger.
Yep.
We're not using, what's the Japanese Kyobi? What's the Japanese burger? I'm like, anyway.
Teriyaki, I don't
know. But the point being is we can change the data based on our parameters of how we judge how the data changes. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely.
Like, we control the variables. So if you control the rules, like let's say we're playing a game of Monopoly, right?
Yep. And
you get $200 every time you pass go.
Yep.
What would happen if partway through the game we said, if you land a Monopoly, you get $10,000? It would change the game. I'm not saying it would just be different. That's just how it is.
Yep.
And like, you look at healthcare, you look at how expensive medical bills are for a lot of people. Do you think that healthcare is significantly better than it was 30 years ago? I would say yes, in some regards, but is the expense worth that care difference?
Yep. Well, and think about the internet now, how that's changing currency. You know, I make music. I put it online. I don't get dollars back. I get 0.05 cents per listen. And that's the way it is with ads. That's the way it is with a lot of different companies. They make money online based on how many people are clicking. So then why does the dollar even matter anymore when it's not even about, you know, how much dollars you have? It's about how many clicks you have. And the thing, like cryptocurrency, that's why it's even able to be used, because it's not about physically exchanging goods anymore. Most transactions, especially the large ones, there's no physical, you know.
No, it's all digital anyway.
It's all digital. Yeah.
When was the last time you wrote a check?
I for rent, I do what do they call it? Cashier's checks, but I don't like checks because they don't clear for
3 to 5 days. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
People Venmo checks. People Venmo rent. But I work at a nonprofit yoga studio, and they're going through budgets because even nonprofits have to worry about money, because money is the energy that helps them drive their business.
Yep.
And an average membership is between $75 and $85 a month. And it costs the yoga studio $30 to $40, which is about 3 to 5% depending on the total cost for the year, in revenue for people to pay with a credit card versus pay for automatic withdrawal from their bank account.
Wow.
And that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's like the rake at a casino. It's slowly taking more money from you. And that's what a lot of middlemen do. Like real estate agents do this. Bankers in a lot of ways do this. Loan lenders. Basically anything involving debt is essentially taking your money, adding on a cost of interest, which is known as usury, which it's an interesting subject then, because what's the ethical number? Should it be 1%? Should it be 3%? Should it be 20%? Should it be 30%? Should it be 40%? And who determines that number?
It varies on how much they can trust you. You know, credit. It's all about can we trust this person? Well, we can't. We might as well get as much money out of them as possible because we may not be able to recover our debt. So they're going to jack your interest rate up to 30% or whatever it's going to be because they think they don't have much trust. If you don't have good credit, they don't have much trust in it. And it does make sense. You shouldn't. I don't think a person should be able to keep getting out loans if they don't pay them back. I think that makes perfect sense. I've had credit problems. I worked as a banker. I understand, I understand it, but I can't control my spending. So,
well,